Thank you, Financial Express, for hosting us, and I welcome to all the panelists. As we are all discussing in the previous session, digital public infrastructure, oblique financial inclusion, and in continuation with that topic, we are all aware how India has progressed on this specific infrastructure called digital infrastructure, and this has enabled us to reach our services to small cities, towns, villages, rural, all kind of lives it has touched in India. So much so, in the morning when I was preparing for this panel discussion, I was trying to think of few examples, and I thought I'll request the panelists as well to explain this with their real life examples that they must be experiencing in their professional life. And two such examples which I brought for the experience that digital public infrastructure has brought in. One is as an individual, a worker who comes to a city for working, and the lady is from Bihar. And one of the points she told to us is that she's going to work for another 3 months and then take off for 1 month because she's going to finish with her loan that she's taken for her daughter's marriage. And on asking, it was a pleasant surprise that in her village, she had borrowed it using a bank. She had not borrowed it from informal sources, but she had borrowed it from using a bank. And last 15 months or 18 months that she was serving, she was fulfilling the loan installments, and that's going to come to an end, and therefore she's going to take off for 1 month. So, and when I asked her what's the rate of interest she's paying, so she mentioned 12%. So, versus 8 years ago when she had borrowed it for her elder daughter, she had borrowed it from informal means. And I didn't ask her the rate of interest, but and it must have been more tougher for her. So these are the kind of examples which are touching the lives of individuals in the villages and the rural population, and we must be experiencing it every day. The second example is from my professional life is I run a platform called Treads, where MSMEs discount their invoices. And we keep checking the MSMEs are logging in from which all areas. So the farthest area that an MSME, there are about 7 MSMEs that are logging in and getting their invoices discounted digitally, is from Andaman and Nicobar. I myself have not visited that place as yet, being an Indian. And I was pleasantly surprised. So I just took out the numbers in the morning. In last 18 months, invoices worth 7 crore they have gotten discounted by these 7 MSMEs from Andaman and Nicobar. And about 12 MSMEs from Meghalaya have got their invoices discounted. So this is a very pleasant surprise. So how did we reach them when we are ourselves not present? Is by way of digital infrastructure. Because the information could flow to them and they could share their credentials for onboarding first, and then followed by giving the invoices on a regular basis. And without physical connect with each other, they actually are able to transact this much volume and value as I just reflected. So these are some of the examples which I am experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and I'll now put in on to our panelists to share their experiences accordingly that they are seeing in their professional life, the digital public infrastructure that is getting used. I'll start with Mr. Rawat from NABARD. Mr. Rawat, I see that NABARD is on the ground. You yourself has 3 decades of experience in various northern and western small cities and towns. And how have you... Perfect. So how is NABARD contributing in this digital journey for expansion into rural cities, towns, and also helping the small banks or the cooperative banks in these cities to adopt digital inclusion? So some of your experiences, if you may want to share.
Yeah, first of all, good morning to all of you, and thank you for having me here. Uh, so, if you talk about the benefits of the digital public infrastructure that we have created over the years, so the number speaks for itself actually. So if you see the entire Jan-Dhan account that we have opened, more than 54 crore is the number right now. If you see the coverage and enrollment under social security schemes, three major schemes that Government of India is promoting, it's more than 75 crore. And if you, all of you know about the UPI transactions that's happening. So, day before yesterday, our PM paid almost 9.8 crore farmers PM Kisan benefits at a click of a mouse, reaching out to 9.8 crore at a click of a mouse. So these are some of the areas on the payment side. And on the other side, if you see on the lending space, so almost about 8 crore farmers are there, those who are getting KCC. Thanks to all the easiness that we have got because of this entire digital infrastructure. Almost about 8 crore SHG members are getting loan. And almost about 4 crore joint liability group members are getting loan. So this is almost about 17 to 20 crore people in the rural area. There may be some duplicacy in that, but about 18 to 20 crore people getting loans from the formal financial institutions that you mentioned about. And if you add the MSME numbers that we are discussing in the previous session, Mudra and other various Government of India schemes, the number adds up almost doubles up. So almost 18 to 20 crore farmers and other rural populace, vis-a-vis almost about 25 to 30 lakh crore going to them through the formal financial system. And on top of that, we recently had a financial inclusion survey. And the reports clearly suggest that the shift from the non-institutional to institutional has increased manifold. So almost from the last survey that we did to this survey of about 5 years gap, so almost 15 to 16% increase is there. And even the economic survey recently talked about it, that from 1950, when the non-institutional was almost 90%, it has reduced to almost 23, 24% now. So this is all because of this entire shift. Now coming to what NABARD is doing, how we are doing it is, one is, there was a lot of push, not only from NABARD, even the Government of India also. If you see the entire push that is being given to not only educate people about financial, inclusion on financial matters, financial literacy and financial inclusion, both ways there is a lot of push from government. In fact, highest level at the government, they are going to states, attending the SLBC meetings, reviewing it very closely. RBI is there with respect to their entire financial inclusion drive. Then from NABARD side also, we are working a lot on financial literacy and then resulting into financial inclusion. And in that context, I think the rural financial institutions, which are not that tech savvy as compared to the private sector or the public sector banks. So how do we bring them at par with the private sector or the public sector banks, or for that matter, any other services that is available in the urban areas? So that is one area where we are working in a big way. Last year, we have started an ambitious program of digitizing almost 75,000 cooperative credit societies at the ground level. 75,000 cooperative credit societies, entirely digitizing them. So once it settles, on top of that, we will be integrating all the facets of the digital public infrastructure so that each and every service which otherwise is not available to them, so that also can be given to them or provided to them. Secondly, even the rural financial institutions, especially the cooperative banks, we have more than 350 cooperative banks working at the district level. They are the major purveyor of credit, formal credit at the ground level. For them also, it's very difficult because they are small entities working within the geography, within a district. For them, both financial as well as technical manpower, financial power is not there, technical manpower is not there to align with this entire and use this entire digital public infrastructure. The cyber security aspect is another, so they are not able to meet. For them also, we are coming out with a common platform, where through the common platform, they will just be plug and play. And they can get host of services with other banks are providing. So that is the piece that we are working on. And from our own experience, I can say that I was talking about the social security schemes. So you mentioned about your trades experience. I will mention, last year I went to my native place. And I just, by curiosity, I visited one of the branches. And I was just talking to him that what's happening, what's new, all that, about that. So, so he just mentioned me one story. He said one lady came to me just 15, 20 days ago, and she wanted to close her account. She wanted to close her account because her husband has passed away, and she needed some money, whatever was left in the accounts, and 5,000-7,000, she wanted to withdraw. And he said, I was in the process of closing her account, and certainly I saw that her husband had enrolled for a Suraksha Bima Yojana. And then he digged it further, and he could provide her that 2 lakh coverage that is there. So just imagine, I mean, many places, the challenge is that although enrollments are happening, the numbers I discussed about is huge, but its utility, I mean, had the branch manager not been alert, it would have just gone away. And that trust or everything that we are talking about, so that would not have been there. So enroll karaya tha, benefit nahi mila. That is what comes. But these are the benefits. So although we don't want such incidents to actually happen, but when it happens, it is for that purpose. So these are the type of narratives which actually enforces us to work on these in a much bigger and larger way.
No, absolutely, this is very encouraging, Mr. Rawat. And what I understand that, as you explained, NABARD is working on uplifting the digital infrastructure amongst the cooperative banks, credit societies. That's good to know. Coming on to Mr. Mammen, who is now a part of a very large microfinance SRO. And in the previous panel, we had one of the last comment was that microfinance institutions have now NPA staring at them. And with this digital public infrastructure, how are microfinance institutions preparing themselves for the next wave? I mean, fine, what has happened has happened. One of the gentlemen was suggesting that can AI preempt and let the MFI know what all could go wrong in the coming times. So from your experience and understanding, how are MFIs working towards digital adoption for their credit processes and for financial inclusion?
Thank you so much for this question, and thank you Financial Express for bringing me here for this discussion. Let me first of all introduce myself. I represent an organization called Sa-Dhan, which is an association of microfinance institutions and also a self-regulatory organization, SRO, appointed by Reserve Bank of India. So for the last 10 years, this is the 10th year, we have just completed 10 years as an SRO and 25 years as an association. Microfinance, as you know, deals with small loans to the poor people. And it's in small loans like 20,000, 30,000 rupees to maximum. Today, the average loan size is somewhere around 48,000 to 50,000. And you have around 8.4 crore of borrowers, unique borrowers taken loan from it. And total outstanding as on date is somewhere near to 3.9 lakh crores. Although it went up to 4.4 lakh in March 24, it has come down. As the previous speaker, in the previous panel, there was speaker, Mr. Manu was talking, there has been degrowth happened, there is an NBA hike has happened, so I'll come to that point. So first of all, let me tell, microfinance deals with a large number of people with small loans. And when you are dealing with small loans with large number of people, physical alone is not sufficient. Although microfinance is a feet on street model, it's a physical model where the employee of a microfinance institution go to a village, mobilize the people there, they do the appraisal there and then give the loan. This is how it happened. And previously it used to be entirely on physical mode. They used to come with the application. Mr. Mittal was also talking about that aspect. They used to go collect the application in paper and bring it to the branches and do the processing, and then disbursement used to take place, and it used to have a time lag. But now today, lot of things have been digitized. In the sense, the loan origination takes place through the digital mechanism. There are softwares with most of the microfinance institutions, they have core solutions, which allows them to onboard the borrowers digitally. Does a credit check at the field itself, like Mr. Seth was talking about the CRIF Bureau in the last session. So there you know the credit history of a person, his or her the credit background you can make out. So on a click of a button, you can know whether the person is a defaulter or whether she has taken more than what she can take. So those kind of information is available. So credit bureau check is possible. Then there is an appraisal which takes place, which mostly takes place digitally. And even disbursement, entire disbursement now takes place digitally. And let me tell you, to your question, to the digital public infrastructure, although entirely digital public infrastructure may not be taken or adopted by the microfinance institution, but for the payment purpose, it's entirely, almost 100% payment now takes place through the digital modally and by using the Aadhaar and the bank accounts. Even now, collections have started digitally. That is also an extension of the DPI. Almost 20 to 25% of the collections nowadays take place through the digital mode, through using the UPI code, and that is how it happens. So there has been a large adoption of digital technology. There has been even, I forgot to tell that, e-sign as well as digital documentation. That is an area which many of the microfinance institutions have adopted that. E-sign is being adopted by many MFI because that also helps them in deciding whether the person is the real or is there any fraud or anything of that sort. So that is being done. Documentation takes place many times in most of the cases online. It started with the COVID, in fact, because of that distance, keeping distance, people were not allowed to come together. So it gone into the digital mode. So a large amount of digitization has taken place, but there are definitely more to be done. To your specific question you asked about the NPA in the sector, yes, there is suddenly there has been a spurt in the NPA. There has been a stress happening in this sector. It's mainly because of the over leverage, because of the larger amount they have borrowed more than what is possible for the person. There are 2-3 reasons for that. One, let me tell you, one of the reasons is that economy itself has not come back to the old shape like the prior to the COVID time. So many a times people are still having an economic stress at the field. They have especially in the rural areas, because 76% of the microfinance goes to the rural areas. There is a rural economic stress is still there. It's not come back. So there is a tendency to borrow more. And secondly, when there are more and more players operating in the area, they are ready to lend money, people started borrowing more. But then there is a check, as it was mentioned earlier also. There is a check given that RBI has very clearly said that 50% of the repayment should not, your monthly income, 50% of your monthly income should not go in the form of repayment. But probably something has gone wrong. Either the data has not fully supported that, or somebody must have ignored that. In the process, the leverage has gone up beyond what is possible for them to serve, and today we are facing a stress. Of course, the SROs have took charge of this matter in June last year itself. We put some guardrails. We put a guardrail of what should be the maximum exposure, although there is RBI has liberalized that aspect. So with that, we have come down, we have brought down the situation to a great extent, but the damage has happened. Now it will take a little time to come back to the old shape. Now going forward, regarding your specific question, going forward, how do we make use of the digital technology for the purpose of taking care of this kind of an issue? As I said, there are two issues which are happened. One is that over leverage, and over leverage is because of the more than borrowing beyond the limit prescribed. Number one. Number two, borrowing data is not fully available to the lender many a times, because the credit information bureau data, it captures only the data of the regulated entities like banks, NBFCs, small finance banks, regional rural banks. They are regulated by Reserve Bank of India, but there are unregulated entities also operate in the field. So probably there has to be some mechanism to identify a better or do a better appraisal of the family income as well as the credit liability of a person. That will help probably to overcome this kind of an issue in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Mammen. Brijendra, let's come to you and understand from your experience, and we have a lot of SME community as audience here. How has digital public infrastructure helped or can help SMEs? We have many digital public infrastructure which are live, which are used by SMEs on a day-to-day basis. So some light and some experiences if you want to share.
Sure, Sundeep. So first, thank you for having me here, and honestly, I am learning a lot being here, because this community which is serving at the grassroots level, and somewhere are the beneficiary of that, because the people, when actually they become, overall more inclusive and contribute more to the society, at least everyone benefits. Coming to the DPI, so let me just, demystify DPI first, because for many of us it has become a jargon, So what exactly is a digital public infrastructure? And when this was being discussed, the core idea was that how do we make something which is open source, uses open protocols, because it's very important for anything to become a digital public infrastructure to be able to speak, to connect with other systems, because it cannot be a closed system. So that was the second very important attribute. And the fact is that it's very modular in nature, so you can keep multiple modules together and create one larger infrastructure. Now, one of the things which has changed the way MSEs and MSMEs have operated, one obviously is the UPI, because the fact is, how do we ensure that people are able to pay for it directly without many times make it cashless? So, we know the UPI story. It's now a global story, the way it has helped. And the good part is that UPI is constantly innovating. So when it started with, okay, fine, we will give a QR code, and things started happening there. Then later on, a voice-enabled thing came, because the fact is that many times people on ground did not even know whether the money got transferred or not. And a simple solution of creating a voice-enabled system, solved a lot of such problems. Now the question, then it said, okay, fine, from there, can we move to a peer-to-peer, transfers? And which had a great impact, because then it, took away the entire requirement of, many times the ATMs. ATMs have almost gone. People seldom, I have not carried cash. In fact, I'm not carrying my wallet even now. Because it has made this so democratized that if you have a mobile, you can do a lot of transactions. And it's not only for the purchaser, but it also helps the seller, because selling becomes easier. The third one, which is, I would say it's still in making, is the entire ONDC. Because what has happened, we already had seen digital commerce, entering in our country quite some time back. It's a roaring success. $125 billion being done in 24 itself, projected to be a $300 billion by 2030. It's a huge market, and growth rate of almost 27%. It's just a big. Now the question is that is our MSME missing on that very important, growth area which the country has to offer? And that's what we saw, that they are platform-driven products which always been there, Amazon, Flipkart of the, the day. And then the question was that how do we ensure that, the hyperlocal people who are there who can provide those same services, get discovered better, they are able to provide those services to the people maybe who's sitting next door, but actually ordering the same thing from Pune or, maybe even further down south. How do we ensure that there's a visibility around that? And that's what the entire idea about bringing ONDC. And the idea was then that how do we ensure that people come on the network, get discovered, by people who are, or by the buyers who could be very close, could get discovered, across platforms. So it's important that if you go and register yourself on one platform, you are not stuck with that platform only, but anybody who's registered, any buyer who's registered on any other platform should be able to see them. So that was the idea that from a platform-centric model of digital commerce, can we go to a network-centric model? So that was the entire concept of ONDC, and we have seen, this is, again, it's in making. It is, I won't say cannot be done as easily as a UPI. UPI itself was not easy. But still it was easier because everything was moving digitally, it was all in the digital space. Here there's a physical element. The goods have to move from one place to another. Somebody should be able to go and give a complaint that I have not received the good. How do you manage that? Would ONDC as a platform take responsibility? As of now it does not. So there are things that still to be made, but this is a brilliant idea about how do we ensure that people get to see each other, are not dependent on one specific network. And then there are multiple use cases. So there's an underlying backend protocol on which ONDC works, but the same protocol is now being used for finding. Think of it, MSMEs also need to find, people. You have to go and, hire people to get the work done. Where do you find those people? You will be limited to who you know. But the fact is that now there's a discussion of can we create, a similar network for professionals, for workers, where people can simply join in. And then you are able to go and look for those people on a network and hire those people. Same thing is happening for students, how do you go and they get their internship. So this network effect which the digital public infrastructure brings in the entire ecosystem, which creates a lot of value for buyers, for sellers, for the intermediaries, for the logistics service providers. So we're just waiting to see that exciting thing happening.
This is interesting that ONDC is shaping up, and we have previous example of GEM portal of the government where a lot of MSMEs are selling to the government using GEM portal. And ONDC, of course, like a marketplace network, should be another success in this space. Brijendra, continuing with this, do you see AI, blockchain, any kind of other tools which will be further used to enhance this digital public infrastructure in coming days?
Okay. I know AI is right now being talked of everywhere, and me being a practitioner, can tell there are good sides to it, really good sides to it. There are bottlenecks, because AI is not cheap. So the fact is that how do we ensure that people are still, and there are models available. So point is that it doesn't make sense, to create your own AI teams, initially. At some point in time, once you grow, you just might want to. But coming back, taking a step back on, what's the role of AI, blockchain, and the emerging technologies, drones are there, which is being used. So one, if you look at what are the components of AI which actually makes a lot of sense now, and which has been proven. The very first thing, remains this entire summarization and giving you a response out of a vast set of knowledge that you may have. So chatbots, so that's one thing which we have seen doing things very effectively. So anybody who has any questions around your businesses, anything, in fact, it can negotiate on our behalf. So that's a very interesting thing which now I've seen the chatbots doing. So that's one good part about your customer engagement that can actually be made much better, much less costlier, and providing a better service, you know. So, and this which is consistent, that becomes very important, because otherwise in a call center, one guy could be good, other guy may not be. So you're dependent on a human, you know, to be able to provide a good service or not being able to provide a good service. So that's one area we have seen a lot of adoption coming in. The second part, you mentioned blockchain. Now, blockchain is again, it's a great thing specifically where, you know, any kind of provenance has to be proved, you know. So if you do something which is some very, very, you know, specific, which the value comes in, if somebody certifies, for example, organic products. Now, whether the product is organic or not, now everything has an organic stamp onto it, you know. So, but if you export, many times people will say, okay, fine, I want to see exactly where it came from, where it went to the value chain. If there are certain things which has to be temperature controlled, vaccines, you know, and there are multiple other things. Has the temperature been maintained throughout the, you know, the journey? So there's a lot of such thing which the technology provides a level of confidence, a layer of confidence which the buyer would want to have. And that is something which increases the value of them. So that's another area. And then there are use cases about how do you do a marketing much, you know, easier, much more costly, cost effectively. How do you ensure that your, very importantly, part of AI is also your machine learning models and forecasting models. So how much inventory to keep? You know, how much time does it take to, you know, actually take out those inventory or sell those inventory? Can I get a customer predictions or customer behavior from my network providers, which can tell, okay, fine, I see this kind of a requirement coming in. A lean inventory again. This is something which brings down the cost. So those are the areas where we've seen a lot of AI being used, and we have talked about in the previous session how AI is being used in lending. So that's another use case.
Thank you. Mr. Rawat, last question to you. Now, having experienced and the digital infrastructure in the country in the last 5 to 10 years, and your previous example of your hometown and the lady getting benefit, where do you see any incentives to be given for encouraging the use? And where do you see now digital public infrastructure benefits in the next 5 years?
So I think in the last GFF conclave, the Honorable Governor, former Governor, he announced that so JAM Trinity UPI has done wonders for our payment system. Now for lending space, they are coming out with another area called ULI. So for lending space, I think that is the thing to see in future. In fact, what has been already done in some cases in MSME sector. So agri sector also we are working on that. In fact, issue of KCC, Kisan Credit Cards to farmers. So normally it takes about almost 30-40 days to sanction in the normal process, because you have to have a Aadhaar card, you have to have your land record, then you have to have your scale of finance. Now through ULI, what we have seen is RBI Innovation has already integrated with so many other players like the state governments for the land record, where the land record has been digitized. Then the e-sign facility is there. Then there is a Aadhaar authentication. So literally now it can be sanctioned a KCC. If you have a valid document, it can be sanctioned in 10 minutes. So that ULI piece can be used in every other aspect of lending. For example, another piece I would give in KCC again, there is a concept of KCC being provided for the dairy sector. Now dairy sector, normally the banks will come animal, whether the animal is present or not, insurance is there or not. So many questions before financing a working capital limit for a dairy farmer for providing the KCC. But now, what RBI Innovation has done is, they have integrated with the dairy federations, where the dairy farmer is pouring milk on a regular basis, daily basis, and he is getting the payment in lieu of that also. Wow. So that becomes a decision-making point for the bank to sanction the KCC for dairy activities immediately. So bank, I mean, obviously there will be an animal, then only is able to pour the milk. So that sort of a decision-making. And similarly, other areas like, so one is that, I mean, if the federation is not there and the payment is not happening by the federation, then other areas like if he is purchasing fodder from a particular vendor, or he is procuring feed from a particular vendor. So he has that history that whatever he is taking is being utilized. So you are ensuring the end use also. So that is another way of seeing that he actually needs, he's a genuine farmer and he's working. So these multiple cases. And similarly, one major challenge that we have in the agri sector today is those farmers, those who are having valid land documents, KYC, banks are pushing for that. So normally, if he's not an NPA or he's not borrowed from others, so there will not be any much problem in getting a loan, KCC loan for that. But major chunk, or large chunk, almost 17% of our gross cropped area is being tilled by tenant farmers, landland farmers. How do you ensure that? He doesn't have a land record. And the original owner of the land, is not ready to share his document with the tenant farmer, because maybe he has also taken loan, or maybe there may be some other reason. He is concerned whether if I share, that ownership may go. So those are the concerns. So using the central bank digital currency, we are purpose bounding the loan. So if a tenant farmer gets a 50,000 loan, so at least 25,000 he is using for, say, purchase of seed, purchase of fertilizers and all. So we are purpose bounding to ensure that he is actually doing the farming, because he is purchasing seed, he is purchasing fertilizer. That is how we can make sure that the end use is there and he is a genuine cultivator of the land. So we are doing a pilot with RBIH on that. So such tenant farmers, landless farmers where the number is used, they also get benefited. So these are the types of innovations and use of this entire DPI that we have to see to ensure that how the entire lending space is improved. And secondly, you mentioned about the incentives and all. So although different types of incentives are there in the agri sector, but one incentive that, and everything if you do through the digital medium, and you are creating a history, you are creating a record. And on top of that, if the bankers are financing you without any security or collateral security on the basis of your credit history or your payment history, transaction history, that I think should be a incentive enough that people shift to digital. So I think these are the things, but then a lot of education is required, a lot of literacy is required. In fact, there are areas that, especially in the remote areas, where the borrowers even don't know that this is my repayment due date. And if they avail an enrollment in social security schemes, they don't know that this is how I can take benefit of it once the incident happens. So lot of education, lot of nudging is required. And the incentive, I said, is, I mean, that should be a big incentive.
Absolutely, I agree with you, and it is very, very heartening to note that you are using digital rupee sample for controlling the flow of transaction to the farmers, and it will help the farmers a lot. Thank you so much.
I just want to add to it.
Yeah, sure.
In fact, on the question which you asked last, about how do we go forward as far as microfinance is concerned. At the moment, when you say microfinance, it's more on a group mode of lending. They go by the social security of that group, the peer pressure of the group. There is no much underwriting taking place on an individual basis. Having seen the situation, what has happened in the recent past, because of the over-leverage or higher stress, I think there has to be a mechanism to go into more of individual underwriting. And in this individual underwriting, the information which Mr. Rawat talked about, bringing all the data, including the transactional data, onto a platform like ULI, that could be useful, that can be used for better underwriting and better lending, quality as far as microfinance is concerned. I feel going forward, group pressure alone is not sufficient. Group collateral is not sufficient. There has to be individual underwriting using all kind of data, including the proxy data available with the system.
Thank you. We leave the floor open for 2 questions, please. Yes.
I managed. Yeah, I'm Dr. Ratnakar. I have a small question. When we are talking about the public infrastructure, digital public infrastructure, how that is different from the private, number one. And if there is something coordination, or whether there is a competition between these both, private and public, digital infrastructure. What we know that we are talking mostly about these payment systems, other things, and also you are talked about some IA. But there are certain tools, there are certain infrastructure which are supposed to be providing the facilities. Your light, please.
So I'll just try and answer it and you can supplement it. Like you said, digital public infrastructure is provided and is open source, and the private institutions as well as the public institutions build their products for giving the service to the community. So by way of an example, let's say Aadhaar we are all aware of, UPI we are already aware of, let's say CoWIN, which was an app we all used. All these are digital public infrastructures. Now, using Aadhaar, using account aggregator, using UPI, TREADS is a product managed by a private company like us, and we use digital public infrastructure to give the service to MSMEs. So this is the basic difference. Yes, please.
Working, but I'm maybe, okay, it is now. Yeah, hi. Paramdeep, Long Tail Innovations. I kind of spent many years in banking technology. Just a question. The cooperative banking sector is obviously the last mile for reaching out and making full use of DPI. A lot of that tech infra is not really existing there, whether it's a core banking or, you know, or anything else. Any thoughts on how the RBI Innovation Hub initiatives like ULI can further be accelerated to make sure that the last mile gets the full benefit of tech?
So in fact, as I mentioned earlier, so it's a big challenge what you mentioned. So I'll just give you 2-3 examples. So this core banking solution you said it's not there, it's there. The CBS is there in the cooperative sector also, but it's not as strong as maybe a private sector bank. Because there are limitations with the cooperative banks because of their lower outreach, because they operate in a particular geography, district is an area of operation for them. So financially they are not that strong. So what we are doing right now, I mean, it's in the planning stage, so as soon as we get the approval from Reserve Bank of India, we'll be launching it. We are introducing a shared services entity for the entire cooperative sector, wherein we'll be providing a platform which will in turn provide all types of services to the cooperative sector. So they don't have to use that whole capex, only the opex will be there. And it will be managed and maintained by a high level of technical expert team, this platform, and all types of services, whatever is now being provided by the private sector, that can be provided by the cooperative sector. So that is, in short, what we are trying to do to make this outreach through the cooperative sector at the ground level. So I'll give another example. So why we are thinking on this? So cyber insurance, you know about the cyber insurance. Earlier, each and every cooperative bank was doing a cyber insurance individually. We asked them to have a common RFP for 300 cooperative banks. We floated a common RFP. That common RFP ensured that the premium is reduced by almost 50% vis-a-vis what they were doing individually, and the services or the coverage becomes double. So that is what we are looking at the entire cooperative sector, that a shared services entity which will ensure that their cyber security aspects are taken care, their technology requirements are taken care, HR requirements are taken care in terms of technology, and this shared services entity will ensure that.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question.
Last question, please.
I have a question that we are finding that a lot of, lending that is taking place is very much, not flexible. It's very rigid. It's not going into innovative, smart technologies. For example, electric batteries, etc. So, MSMEs are getting stuck, in legacy systems which are not driving that kind of productivity. So how can we make the DPIs and all these, banking a lot more smart, so that a lot of innovations can come and the MSMEs can be competitive both domestically and globally? Thanks.
Sure. Do you want to pick it up? So what he's saying is, what I've understood from your question is that how can the smart technology be used so that MSMEs can use digital public infrastructure more and make benefit out of it? Is that the question?
So two areas, and I mentioned ONDC, so I'll just, first refer to that. Making awareness is very important, so what is something that is available, because many times you don't even know what is available, which then can be leveraged. And the second part is that, how do we use something which is more shared? Because, for example, an ERP system, it doesn't make any sense for every business to have its own ERP system, or a customer management system, or an invoicing system. So there's in fact there's a scheme which the Ministry of MSME has come up with, which is called Teams, which basically is is to create awareness amongst the MSMEs, specifically micro and small enterprises, to how do they come on board to ONDC, how their catalogs can be made digitalized. And the responsibility has been given, and the incentive has been given to the seller service provider. And these are they call it seller network providers. And these are the people who are supposed to reach out. And there's already a funding available for them to reach out to the MSMEs to let them know about this entire project itself. Secondly, help them getting onboarded, creating their digital catalogs. They also provide services like your invoicing services, your financial accounting system services, and those services, again, are being subsidized by Government of India. So getting to know about some of these, would help. Secondly, there are other services. For example, if you want to come on to an AI services, there are multiple such providers who will be providing you a chatbot services, which is more license-based. So you don't have to create your own chatbots. You simply can pay a subscription fees. They will go and customize it for your specific businesses, and then you are, onboarded onto that. So idea is to go, more on a shared basis than owning the technology infrastructure yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your insights. This was useful, and I also learned a lot from all three of your conversations. Thank you so much.